So today's sampling of figures represents two of my favourite things about collecting Ninja Turtles. Firstly, I love a fresh spin on a classic character, and that's represented obviously by FREESTYLE. The second thing I love to see in the Ninja Turtles franchise is when new mutants get added into the mix. Because those are always my favourite episodes of any of the iterations, when we get introduced to a new mutant and see what their deal is. So, let's see what their deal is. So let's start with FREESTYLE, because for one, I can't believe how long it has taken for us to get this figure out on shelves and in hands. Who knew I needed a Post Malone figure this badly? And here he is, in the flesh. Straight off the top, I might be the only one who didn't clock this. I thought he had like one squinting eye, or one like sort of more mutated eye, but looking at the texturing on the toy, he has one crudely stitched over eye, which is really hectic. But he is a prime example of the awesome texturing and little details that this line, and Turtles in general, is kind of known for. Like, if we come around the back, you can see he's kind of got this slightly, textured, mottled, bumpy sort of finish to his plastic, which is a really nice effect. And then this kind of spillage, I guess, but also kind of just his natural coloring, that's raised, and then we've got whatever these are. I like to think this is deliberate texturing and not just some kind of manufacturing error, but then you got a starfish and a six-pack ring. He's also, looks like he's got, I don't know, a little bit of beard or chest hair action going on, and then that mottling is carried over onto his, and that mottling's carried over to his regular skin as well, which is cool. Then you got all of the, little pockets and biddies from his jumpsuit. I'm not sure if he's wearing flippers or if these are his feet, but either way, it's bound to be hard to walk. Also, right, when you're just looking at him on the whole, it's not too confronting, but when you focus just down on the baby hands coming out of his incredibly buff arms, there's a weird unsettling quality about it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's got a regenerating Deadpool quality to it. It would have been nice maybe if the mouth, rather than just being blacked out, had have, been a bit more recessed, but it does still work with the aesthetics of the movie as a whole. And he's got these great tampo tattoos all through there. Nondescript tribal. Very early 2000s of him. In what's also quite a clever move, I think, his manta ray wings and, I don't know, what would you call them? Mandibles? I'm going to call them mandibles. That's like a separate piece that's been glued on top, which is cool. It gives him a bit more depth and allows for more freedom of movement and a fully realized sculpt. In terms of articulation, you've got a universal joint at that shoulder, obviously limited a little bit by his manta ray wings, but that's fine. Then, same deal. Bit of a universal at the wrist. No waist swivel, but then universal thighs and knees, so he can, you can get some shapes out of him. He's got as much articulation as one could reasonably want. You know what I mean? There's only so much that they could reasonably do with these character designs, and I think this is nailing it. Accessory-wise, it comes with a baby knife.
This is baby knife.
Maybe that's what happened to his eye. It's not the most compelling of accessories, but it's something. So before we unleash some more mutants, I figured we gotta have a look at him alongside the classic FREESTYLE and see how they stack up. You can definitely tell who it's supposed to be. Big time reinterpretation, but it's fun, right? It's a fun update. And how satisfying is it to now finally be able to finish the mutant cast from the movie? That is a strong looking crew. Man, I really liked that movie. And the show. And hopefully the game, which is another great segue into these two. Alright, so these jabronis, as we know, are both from the new Mutants Unleashed video game, which when I started filming this review, I hadn't actually played. I have since played it, given up on it, and lamented the time lost in even attempting to play through it. It's not good. It feels quick and cheap and lazy, and the sort of game, like, I thought we were done with sort of movie tie-in games being so thoroughly phoned in. It's one of those games that if it was a free mobile game, you'd be like, yeah, okay, this is okay. I don't mind paying microtransactions for extra skins and characters, whatever. But it's not. It's like a, proper console game. I got it on PS5 and I was like, why am I playing an average PS2 game? Speaking of skins, what I do think is kind of cool is the 4 figures from this sort of wave come with these. And these give you access to extra skins to play in the game. They're like the plain clothes skins. They're going to high school skins. I don't super know why anyone would want to do that, but I do think it's a cool thing to have done in the first place. It's a great tie-in, but it just doesn't matter because the game sucks. But is it a different story with the figures themselves? So let's start with Turbo CAMMY, who, when you start the game, is just regular CAMMY, and she's a much cuter little chameleon girl. Presumably at some point, as, you know, you find out that she's the game's primary antagonist, this happens. I don't know, maybe she falls into a box of crayons. I really don't know. Like I said, I gave up on the game. Life's just too short. The figure is kind of cool. It's really nice to see them doing a much larger format figure. Like, she's definitely bigger than your standard bad guys. If we have a look, like, she's got the mass to rival Rocksteady. So you can definitely buy that she is the big bad of the game. Suitably intimidating to any, you know, would-be turtle interlopers. As for her, like, you know, deco color layout, she has a little bit, with each limb being a different color, it kind of gives her the quality of being a test shot, where they just kind of pumped out the pieces on whatever plastics happen to be loaded into the molds at the time. But she's got some paint apps, she's got weird blue teeth, and, you know, her pupil, her horns are colored, I think. Her crazy cassowary crest.
The crest on Birdman's helmet!
Inside of her mouth is painted, which is a nice detail. That's definitely something they probably didn't have to do if they didn't want to. Torn up Hulk shirt, messed up tennis skirt, which just looks weird. Speaking of the tennis skirt, it definitely limits the articulation. Like, it seems like her legs are on a universal, but you can't really get the full range of motion because the skirt gets in the way. They're also mounted oddly, so that there's, even without the skirt interfering, the way they're recessed, not a lot of back and forward to be had, which makes those, like, those knees a little bit irrelevant. She does have foot swivel. Tweet, tweet, tweet. The tail also swings from side to side, and you got a waist swivel. The arms, universal to the shoulder, universal elbow, hand rotation, so the arms are pretty posable. The tongue does nothing, which is a bit of a bummer. The head is kind of like rocked around, but it's really cast in there, so you can get some subtle movement out of it without it ruining the lines of the figure, but, you know, nothing too crazy. Alright, there's not really any gimmicks or accessories to be had with her. Size, mass is her gimmick. So, you know, the kind of standard articulation we've come to expect from this line is all there, but just some of it, by the very nature of her design, is limited. A bit like it was with FILLET, to an extent. What makes her a bit harder to, you know, pose out is the fact that her tolerances on her legs are really quite weak, and because they don't move too much, you can't do a lot with the legs, but the tail does work as a counterbalance much better than I'd sort of thought it would. She can actually stand most of the time. Now, CRABAPULT, on the other hand, seems much more deliberately finished, right? He comes with his, I don't know, I guess it's a wheelie bin? Maybe in New York this is a much more recognizable bin kind of shape, but I think it's a bin. I think it's like a wheelie bin. It's got trash bags in it, and eggplant bombs? Again, I imagine that's relevant to the game. I assume he throws bombs at you or something. Who knows, right? Not me. He seems to be some kind of janitor slash sports enthusiast, but again, can't say for sure. Quite a good ball joint on that head, so he can throw all kinds of shapes that you want to see. He can look everywhere. I had thought maybe his stalks would be independently articulated. They're not, but that's not a huge deal. Universals at the shoulders, which are asymmetrical. Universals in his elbows, but they do that thing where a lot of the movement ends up being limited by the joint being recessed inside the sculpt. So, I mean, it makes for nicer lines on the figure, but does limit a little bit how you can move him. He has wrist swivel on both, including his big claw hand. I, for one, never understand why any figure with a claw would not have articulated claw pinchy action. That would have just taken this dude to another level. I don't know why they didn't do it. They should have done it. I'd have done it. Pinch, pinch. I also think it would have been fun maybe if you'd been able to, you know, access this, because it's big, pretty solid piece. So I don't know why you wouldn't allow the ability to, you know, store some junk in there. No waist swivel on this bad boy. Universals at the thigh, at the knees, ankle swivel, but they're in that way where it's like, what What way should you be facing? What is the front? What is the front of your leg? Tell me. Tell me where is the front?
Who is this rudderless hippie? How do I get away from him? Has he got a hunting knife strapped to his shin?
His tolerances are super loose. All of them. And given how back heavy he is, and how top heavy, you're virtually never getting him to stand. He's never standing up. That arm can't support at all the weight of his claw. Accessory-wise, he does come with more than just that trash shell. He has a kettlebell, which leans into the whole gym enthusiast thing. I don't know, maybe he's trying to get swole to counter for his diminutive stature. He's got some little crab syndrome going on.
Hey, I remember when you were a nerdy little 4th grader, and now you're an emotionally crippled mini Hulk.
And he also has this hermit crab in a can, or is it in a fire extinguisher, or is it just kind of stylized? I don't know, but he has it. It's there. You can put it up there if you wanted to. Otherwise it does nothing. So he is much more capable of throwing shapes than Turbo CAMMY is, but his tolerances and balance issues mean it, you know, probably didn't need to be as well articulated as it actually is. Super fun to play with though. Size-wise, again, he is absolutely dwarfed by the turtles, the complete opposite of Turbo CAMMY. But, you know, that's his deal. And from the angry expression on his face, I think it's pretty clear that he suffers no fools. And that's that. That's these three in a nutshell, or a crab shell, as the case may be. What do we think? Are you going to pick them up? Have you already got them? So far, this whole line has been dropping first in Australia, but it seems like with these ones, they've finally come out in the US first, so I imagine there's a lot of peeps already got them in hand. What are we thinking? Do you like them? I definitely like CRABAPULT. I wish his tolerances were a bit tighter so you could get more out of him. FILLET is everything I dreamed a FILLET would be, and I'm so glad to finally have him in the collection. Turbo CAMMY, cool because of her size, but I do wish that she just did a little bit more, but I can forgive it because she is so big. And, you know, there's limits. There's limits on what they can do with these guys. Also, who's played the game? Were you all as underwhelmed as I was by what a mediocre offering it was? Or the fact that it was turtles, was that enough to get you over the line and you had some fun? I might go back to it once my initial disappointment wears off, but for now, I got bigger fish to fry. So what do you think? Hit me up. Hit me up in the comments below. Let's get nerdy with it. I want to hear from y'all. I want to know what you think. If you had a good time, like, subscribe, come back for more. If you already have, way to go, you little legend. And until the next one, catch.